Well, hello and welcome to the first ever Mystical Musings podcast. I'm Tava Baird.
I'm Jennifer Taylor.
And before we get started today, we want to have Jennifer lead us in a little invocation to set the mood for our conversation today.
Yeah. So I invite you to just close your eyes for a moment. Unless you're driving, please don't do that if you're driving. If you're in a safe space to be able to do that, then you can close your eyes and just feel into this present moment, just coming present right here, right now. Letting go of anything else on your to-do list or all the things that fill our minds. Just breathing in this present moment. And I invite your higher self to join us today. I invite my higher self to join us today and really be present in this moment in time. I invite all aspects of the divine, third heaven and higher, to join us and be here with us today. I ask that we may be vessels for divine light, love, healing, truth, wisdom, and transformation, and that our thoughts, words, and actions may be divinely inspired and led. We ask that all that comes through today be in the service of those who listen, that we may bring through the next step on your path, that we may illuminate things in your life, the next areas in which to grow and thrive. And that this may be a bastion of hope and love and compassion, acceptance and joy. And I'm just going to kind of sing us into this place for a moment. And just going to shift audio here for a second to make sure you can hear me. Om Vaya, Om Vaya, Om Vaya, Om, 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 Om. Om Vaya, Om Vaya, Om Vaya, Om, 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 Om. Amen, and so it is.
Well, now I'm definitely having a good day because I got to hear you sing live. Now I feel like my soul just dropped into a big fluffy armchair.
That I love that feeling at the end of an invocation where everything shifts. It's like all the things that were spiraling around just sort of settle. And I'm always amazed at what happens when I do that. Like, why don't I stop a million times a day and just do that? That took maybe a couple minutes, but we're in this totally different space now.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I want it to happen in public places, like you're pushing the grocery cart down the frozen foods aisle at Giant. And all of a sudden I hear that and I'm just like, and now I am consciously doing my grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Before,
Yeah.
there's so much of the day that we walk through when we're on routine and we're not conscious, that just having that little bit of music to center you and call in the ancestors is really, really a blessing. So
Yeah. One of my goals is to have lots of little recordings like that people can access and that I can access. I half the time I think I probably use the recordings more than anybody else, but to have little things like that to where it's like, you know, it's on your phone and you're walking through the grocery store and you're feeling frazzled and you go, oh, I'm just going to push play real quick, just for a few minutes. Even without the volume on, the energy comes through. So yeah, that'll have to
Absolutely.
be more on the to-do list there.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things we don't get enough of as adults. When we're children, there's a lot of singing around us. You know, you go to a campfire and you're singing, or you're singing in school, and you have playground songs, and you know, teenagers have so much music that really is part of their environment, that you know, that they're always listening to. I mean, I remember being a teenager and I just couldn't live without, this will give away how old I am. I couldn't listen, you know, make it through the day without hearing Duran Duran doing Save a Prayer. And as an adult, I find there's less of that and less of me letting in new things. Instead, I'm playing the exact same, you know, like 6 songs. But yeah, that song, that's one of my goals. Is I'm so lucky to have copies of some of the recordings you've made, where now I'm trying to reintroduce that into my life. I'm singing in the morning, or I'm singing at night, or I'm listening to you sing, and I'm starting to try new music, and singing in the haunted house where I excavate, which I'm sure we'll explain later in future episodes of this. But, you know, just that, having that song back is so, so important.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
here we go. Now we're already talking because we're so used to talking to each other without telling anybody who we are. Uh, would you like to go first, a little on your background and why we're together here on this podcast?
Um, sure. So I am, as we said at the beginning, I'm Jennifer Taylor. I often go by Jen, or affectionately known as Jen Tay. And so I have kind of a varied background. I started in dance and art in college, and actually to use all of that as therapeutic tools in the community to help people to move through things in a different way and in a more embodied way. And then after college, discovered that was not the easiest thing to instantly implement back in what, like 1997. And so, you know, worked with traumatized children and extreme kinds of situations, and then became a massage therapist and did a lot of more kind of really diving into how the body responds to stress and our environment and what's happening. And that was the first time I was introduced to energy work. And I remember thinking, this is amazing. Oh my goodness. The fact that, and we had actually explored that some even in dance, was really actually the first time I'd explored that, where we were just exploring energy work and how we could transfer energy from each other, and how we could take pain from someone's body with our intention. And the little bit of energy work that we did in massage therapy school and craniosacral work was just incredible. It was like, there's this other world of stuff that's happening. And I really, really wanted to explore it more. But again, you know, real life, like I had to go back and start working. And so I started working as a massage therapist. Energy work, at least in this area, was really not, it kind of wasn't a thing. I mean, there were probably people doing it and I just had no idea, but it wasn't so mainstream that I could just say, hey, I'm going to do energy work as a part of my massage practice at the time. And so that kind of fell back out. And, you know, life went on, and we had adopted children and then had children. But there was a point when all of a sudden things were really desperate. I was desperate for help, desperate for something. And I'd recognized I was profoundly depressed. And I said that morning, I'm going to get an appointment and I'm going to go get on antidepressants. And there was a farm tour that day, and I stopped by with this one place, and there was a woman there that had a tent and was doing like 20-minute really inexpensive, just, hey, try out energy work. And the woman said, I think you need to do this. And on a whim, I said, oh, okay, I'll do it. And I laid down on that table, and she put her hands over top of me, and I felt just incredible amounts of weight lifting off of me. It was unbelievable. I couldn't get over it. And she ended up sitting there for 40 minutes. I didn't realize how long it was, but she was like, I couldn't leave you like that. Like I had to keep going. And I got up off that table and thought, my depression is gone. Like, it's gone. All of the weight, all of that feeling of I just can't trudge through the day was gone. And I was at that point in an extremely acutely critical stage in our lives with our family, and there was some really extreme stuff going on, and yet I felt like I can do this. I felt hopeful, and we started getting energy work sessions, my husband and I both, and things started shifting and changing, and we didn't really even understand what was happening or how she was doing it or what was happening, but she kept saying, I work with angels, the angels are doing the work. And we were like, okay, it doesn't matter what it is. This is incredible. And I ended up then taking Reiki courses thanks to my horse having issues and manifesting and seeing incredible shifts come through with him. And she was like, well, you can keep paying me to do this, or you can just do Reiki. And I thought, well, all right, if I can do this for him, I'll do that. And so everything started shifting, and my health started shifting, my outlook on life, my ability to function and start to feel like I wasn't just surviving shifted and changed. And this whole world of everything opened up, where all of a sudden everything was energy. And I started becoming aware that there are beings around us offering their support and love and healing all the time. And I stopped feeling so alone. And well, I did not expect to get all choked up.
It's okay.
But
You
yeah,
can
it's that it was so profound, like this feeling, what having Reiki and having the knowledge and starting to feel into, I became more energetically aware of what was around me, and being able to actively call in and say, angels, please come and help me. I need help, and feeling the help and seeing it manifest around me. And then, that's kind of expanded to goddesses and all these different aspects of the divine that I didn't even know existed. And to feel that and know that I am not alone, and to see how profoundly different life can be when you walk through it with that awareness. So now I am a professional Reiki practitioner, and that led me to sound healing. So I do sound healing and Reiki and really all kinds of energy work in my sessions. They're called Reiki, but really it's bringing in all kinds of things, and all kinds of aspects of the divine are coming in. And then like recently have added chakra dance as another way. And so I feel like I've really come home to where I started. I'm painting again. I am dancing again, and using art and dance and Reiki and all these different things to bring through ways of healing. And so I started this journey a long time ago.
Let's see. So to go way back, when I was a little child, I was Roman Catholic. I was brought up in the Roman Catholic Church, and I wanted to be a priest. And you can probably guess, based on the fact that I have she, her pronouns, that I was not going to be successful in that endeavor. And so somewhere in my early teenage years, right before I was about to be confirmed in the Catholic Church, I realized that I felt like it was disrespectful to the other practicing Catholics if I confirmed myself in that faith, when in fact that wasn't the faith that was right for me. And so I set out on this course of action. I basically read the entire 100 section of my high school library and public library, and met everybody I could of different faiths to try to figure out which one I belonged to, because I definitely could feel energy moving through me and felt connected to nature and to the wider world. And then along the way, I met someone who was Wiccan. And I thought, oh no, I thought I'd end up, part of some large organized religion where I could go to potlucks every Saturday. And instead, it appears that my belief system is smack in line with this little tiny half hiding in the broom closet faith. Because, back in the 80s, witches weren't as out and proud as they are now. It's still hard to sort of profess your faith along that way. I've been, I've had places that I teach classes and things protested. But the long and short of it is, I have been Wiccan for, this is terrifying, almost 4 decades. The Wiccan part isn't terrifying. The fact that I have been alive a lot longer than 4 decades, it seems impossible to me. But so I've been a practicing witch for about 36, 37 years, but who's counting? I was also a Montessori teacher for about 20 years. And I also have a degree in archaeology, which I am currently putting to use with a volunteer team at a historic tavern just outside of Winchester, Virginia, where we are excavating. And I'm sure there'll be more about that on the podcast. I also run a little pagan education business called Dark Flower Books and Folk Art. I'm a painter. I am also a puppet designer, and I have published 10 books. Some of them are fiction set in Scotland in the 1720s and 1740s with lots and lots of pagan overtones. But I also publish nonfiction. And along those lines, there's a name you're probably going to hear us refer to at times. One of my books is titled The Book of Samael. I had an experience that I'm starting last October that is ongoing and that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I had, for lack of a better word, I guess it's channeling, although I hadn't had any experience with that before. But I have a particular very lovely entity who comes and speaks with me. And his name is Samael, and I've transcribed a lot of what he has to say into one book, and book 2 will be out later this year. So when I first started having experiences with him, he tended to show up at a particular time of day, have his say. I would write it down, and then he would move on. And now he pops in and out of my life like a teenager looking for snacks. I'll just be sitting in the car and suddenly he's making commentary on things. Or I also have been in public places over the last couple of months where I will have people walk up to me and say, I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't disturb you. I don't know you at all, but there's an extremely powerful presence there to your left. Do you know someone named Samuel? And I'll say, you're really close. The vowel is wrong. So I have other people who are frequently sensing him around me. And so I am sure that he will have things to say on this podcast because, as I like to say, I'm basically a glorified secretary for a divine being at this point. So
and a seraphim at that. So I realized, I was like, you said entity, but I was like, just to clarify of what level of vibration we're talking about, he is a seraphim. So is very powerful, but incredibly powerfully, beautifully light-filled, wonderful divine being.
I can't wrap my head around that. Like, I always thought if anything did come to talk to me, it'd be like some 19th tier demon that got kicked out of the house. Like it'd be some guy named Barney with a tail who was probably like drunk half the time. And that's
I'm glad you didn't start channeling until a seraphim showed up, because this would be a very different podcast.
one morning and you wake up one morning and when you're a 52-year-old witch, you don't expect to have a gentleman sitting at the foot of your bed discoursing on the nature of sin in the Garden of Eden. I mean, my first thought was, oh my God, who are you? And my second thought was, I think you're talking to someone of the wrong faith. There must have been an error in your angelic GPS. So but he keeps showing up. So I guess I'm being helpful. And I just hope I can keep being. So I guess that's who we are. And how we know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So my daughter was in toddler class, and when she was at Montessori, and I was totally in awe of her from the second I met her. I was like, oh, she's so cool. I really want her to be my friend. But I was like, well, she's her teacher. There's probably some sort of rule about her being allowed to be friends with me. I waited, was it like 2 years, I think? Maybe
she was out of my class. We were back to school night.
Yeah. And I saw you sitting up there, she had given her like obviously eloquent, amazing speech as usual that like made everybody cry. And I was sitting there going, I can do this. I can do this. And afterwards, she was sitting up there talking to my daughter's current teacher. And I thought, all right. And it was totally a like handing a little note, like, do you want to be friends with me? Check yes or no. I walked out, I was like, now that you're not her teacher anymore, do you think you would maybe want to like have coffee or something? Like, would it be okay for us to be friends?
Which I thought was hysterical because, this just goes to show you what perceptions you have of yourself versus other people. I don't think anybody in my life has ever described me as cool until you. Like I'm the biggest, weirdest nerd you would want to meet. And the fact that you were like, oh, I would love to get together for coffee. And you were so sweet about it. I was like, oh, she doesn't know what a disaster I am. Like she doesn't know that my laundry sits in the dryer for weeks at a time and I would just take clothes out of the dryer if my husband didn't have a fit about it. And like she doesn't know that I, don't vacuum my house as often as I should, or, all of these things that you think about yourself instead of thinking the best things about yourself. But like I guess the story was we started having coffee. And then the next thing we started doing, although it took you like a year to get me in the habit of it, was we started using the app Marco Polo to leave messages for each other. And there's something in my brain that's broke when it comes to technology. So for like a year, Jen was patiently going, I sent you a Marco. All you have to do is hit the button and listen. And then I would listen and then I couldn't get my act together to like respond. And somewhere like a year ago, it clicked. And now we're leaving these long thoughts on all sorts of things for each other. And we were like, we just need to turn this into a podcast. It's like a Reiki master and a witch walk into a room. And what happens after that?
Exactly. Yeah. And the Marcos have really, I think it's been one of the most transformational experiences for me in my spiritual and energetic growth and life and healing. We'll go on there and more, we just start pouring out just totally raw. This is something I'm experiencing. This is something that happened to me. And what do you think? What do you think about it? And we'll just toss back and forth, or yeah, so this angel showed up and started in the middle of the night and started telling me things and talking about the nature of God. But it's been such a beautiful thing. And yeah, I think at one point we we're like, these are kind of like podcasts in themselves. And I think there are a lot of things that we talk about that we realized would be beneficial for other people to be in on the conversations, because, it is very raw and very real, and also incredible divine inspirations and things will come through where we'll be talking to each other on a Marco and something will just come through and the other one will say, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I needed. That's the piece. It's like, that's the nugget that I was missing to get me to the next step that kind of pushes me to that next part in my journey. And so we've really felt like we were meant to find ways of sharing this with others. And so here we are.
And one of the things that's so good about it, and that one of the reasons why we wanted to share this too, is that, most of us are brought up in a culture where we're taught not to trust the things that we feel called to or the messages that we receive, even if we've been practicing for a long time. There are still moments when I find myself, I'm in the parking lot of a Kentucky Fried Chicken talking into the Marco and saying, Jen, am I having a spiritual experience or am I crazy and I need to go to the hospital? Like you you have those moments of doubt, even when it's so clear, like everything is lining up, everything is happening for a reason in front of you, doors are opening, and you're like, okay, this is obviously happening, but you've been conditioned to believe that little voice in the part of your brain that goes, you're not worthy of this. It's not happening to you. I think the first time that Samael showed up, I think I literally said to you, do I need to go to the emergency room? Is something happening to me that I'm hearing this? And, still months later, I mean, it started last October. I still can't fathom that it's happening to me, even when other people walk up and say that they can see or feel his presence around me, even when sometimes he gives me messages to write down that I look at afterwards and I don't remember writing them, but I pass them on to someone else and they tell me that it was like a life-changing experience to read them. That's not me. It's evidence, like it's absolute evidence, but I still, at times, even being what somebody would call an old crone of a witch, you think, how do I fit into this? Am I good enough for this? And the reality is that we are all good enough for it. We are all divine in our souls. And we are allowed to talk to angels and goddesses and each other. And so I think that is one of the underlying pinnings of this podcast is if you're sitting in your car today in traffic, or you're, on your way to the dentist in a couple of hours, or you feel like you are walking through the world alone, you absolutely are not. And the things that you are feeling bring you light are there for a reason. And you do have your ancestors gathered around you. You are being watched over. Sometimes it just takes a slight adjustment of reality to be able to see and hear it again. And that's what we would like to help people do. And so I got super deep there.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you addressed that element of worthiness, because I think that was really one of the first things I think that we worked through together in the Marco Polos. And I realize, for anybody who doesn't know what Marco Polo is, it's an app where you leave each other like video messages, and then the other person can watch and respond to it at any point, and we just can kind of go back and forth. But yeah, I think that's one of the first things that we really started digging deep in was worthiness, and that feeling of recognizing that we both had a lot of feelings of, I am not a person that is really deserving of the kinds of information and the kinds of healing that come through me. And how much then, as I teach Reiki classes and I work with so many people that come in thinking, I really want to be able to do this. I hope I can do this. I really want to be able to send healing through my body, through my hands. And it absolutely happens for every person, whether it's in a Reiki session where you receive the ability to transfer this light through you in a specific way, or I'm just sitting here on a bus feeling lonely and I can just say, I call light. I call light to myself, or angels, please come and just surround me and wrap your wings around me and help me feel loved, or any aspect of the divine, that you are worthy of that. And it will come through you just by virtue of asking and opening. If you're not feeling that around you, it's not because it's not there, but it's often because we're not opening ourselves to the awareness that it's there. And my life is so different now. And it's not because there weren't these divine beings around me all the time, pushing and leading and guiding me. And I can look back and see the evidence of that throughout my entire life, but that I wasn't aware of it. I didn't realize I could open up and I could call it in when I needed it. And I didn't really trust that anything would have been there specifically for me. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, they're busy. I'm sure they have more important things to do than come and help me with this test, or help me with the anxiety about this meeting I'm about to have, or, help with this interaction that I'm going to have. And I think the biggest thing that I witness in others in classes too is that feeling of, I don't know that I'm really worthy of bringing through healing for others, or I don't know if I'm really worthy of receiving this level of support. And I can tell you, absolutely everyone is. We are not meant to be here trudging through things alone. And we still struggle with it. I just sent you a song last week where it was like, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. And I just felt this song come through me. And then I recorded it into voice memos and said, is this good? Make sure Samael listens to it first to make sure it's good, because somehow, as much as I bring through things, and Samael will come through and say, this is good, it is healing, use your voice. And yet, I still have that doubt of, could I have really brought through something that's that healing and good? So we're still on this path with you. And I think that was one of the things we talked about beforehand, of we wanted to really get across to everybody, we're not in some place where we have figured it all out and we have fixed everything and we are healed and just floating through our days as some sort of enlightened being, but that we're on this same path that you're on, and we're holding hands on it. And we're just offering this as a space for you to walk with us. And, if there are things that we know or have experienced that can inform your path and support it, that's why we're here.
It was really interesting because once I released the Book of Samael, I started getting emails from people very far away who had found the book through Amazon or through my Etsy shop or what have you, who had read the book. And they would write me, and I had a whole bunch of them that said, I've had experiences with him too. And, to hear someone 10 states away from me tell me of an experience that sounds very much like some of the things that he says to me, I was just like, he's literally always saying to me, how much proof do you need? And unfortunately, I think because as a child, I was in an organized religion that said there needed to be an intermediary, there needed to be a priest for me to talk to God, really, right? Or to receive forgiveness through confession and stuff like that, that there had to be this other being there, that I didn't learn to trust my own instincts. And so one of the things that Samael is always saying to me and always passing on to Jen too is trust, trust, trust. And I think a lot of that extends to our relationship with nature as we've become more technological, and a lot of us have moved away from really connecting with nature, with the wild. And that is one of the things that Samael talks about. That is where we find, for lack of a better word, God. That's where we find the power, the energy of creation that flows through all of us and unites us. And the more we dive into our apartment buildings and our technology, and the less in touch with nature we are, and with seeing ourselves as a part of it, the less we hear. Wicca is an earth-based religion, and that the way you start to learn to sort your way and walk your way out of your troubles is to be able to hear the divine. And the way that you start hearing the divine is to get your butt out there in nature. And we'll talk about sit spots and some other lovely nature exercises in future podcasts. I have no idea how long we've been talking, because I could talk to you for days, obviously, as we have.
I really don't either, but I feel like we just maybe talk until we feel like it is whole and complete.
Right.
And
Whole.
I think this is good though. And I think I realize as we talk, I realize how many different little parts would be helpful to share with others too. Your background with starting out Catholic and finding Wicca, and my background is, my father's a Methodist minister, and I've gotten kind of in and out of levels of intensity of religion, and more maybe Unitarian Universalist at this point. I believe in God and the divine in all sorts of different ways, but I'm not sure it fits into any sort of category. And it's interesting though. I think I'd kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater when I started saying I don't agree with the way that things are said in certain aspects of Christianity, and feeling levels of judgment and sin and right and wrong. And there were a lot of things that were not sitting with me right. And so I think I'd just sort of thrown a lot of it out. And interestingly, it was Reiki that actually brought me back to more of a sense of God and source and connection. And it's really interesting to me because I've had people in Reiki classes say that the feeling of being connected to Reiki and using it, it feels like prayer. And I think that's so beautiful because it's like we're connecting to the source of all that is, the source of creation. And I think it's the same when you're out in nature and you feel that incredible presence of beauty and peace and power and wonder and awe. And we all just have different words for it, and we have
Yeah.
different perspectives and different cultural perspectives that give us different words for it. But I think one of the things that has been really interesting is that as we have these conversations, we've realized that we're really both kind of in the same place with our beliefs and things. We have different words for them. We have different ways of connecting with the divine, but that, seeing the divinity in everything, in the leaf, in the flower, in the fly and the eagle and the elements, and connecting with all of that. The more we step into nature, the more it connects us with who we are and how we're meant to live on the earth. And part of my background then too, and a lot of the study that I've been doing over the years now, has been shamanistic, ancient Tibetan wisdom, Peruvian and Brazilian indigenous wisdom. And so we have a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different kind of influences in the things that we bring through. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy the most is finding those connections, those connections
Yes. Yes.
between what
Yes.
Tibetan wisdom says and, Quechua wisdom teachings and your tradition, and even what is said in a lot of organized religions, and finding that thread of truth emanating individually from all of these different places throughout all of the span of humanity, and all coming together and illuminating those just core truths, regardless of what we call it or regardless of what our backgrounds are. So our hope is really that regardless of your personal background, of your religion or lack thereof, that this is a space where there will be these elements of truth that transcend any kind of dogma or any bounds really at all. And I think we're continually expanding into recognizing more and more layers of those universal truths.
It was so funny way back when we had like our first coffees together and you started, I had no idea what Reiki was. Like I'd heard Reiki because, I'm in the pagan community and I'm pretty active there. And so, I know a lot of sort of the European pagan practices because that's what kind of swirls around in my circle. And I'd heard people talk about Reiki, but I had no idea what it was, or that it started in Japan and all of this. And it was so interesting as you were explaining it to me the first time, that I was like, oh, she's using this word for it, but I use the word magic. Like it's that I was like, oh, we completely agree on this stuff. We just have very different sort of cultural content for how we're explaining some of these same things. And I love what you said about, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think if you've been in a situation where you've been, protested or hurt or forced out or made to feel like you don't fit or like you can't do something, a lot of times the instinct is to protect yourself and to go, okay, I don't want anything to do with that faith now, nothing. But those faiths all started because someone believed and had their own experiences with the divine in the beginning. And unfortunately, what some of the larger religions have had happen to them is, they started off with a great groundwork and beautiful messages. Then the quest for power of the people who organized them as they grew and grew and grew started to bury that beauty. And soon they become, these machines that are running for power and domination. And that's the point where you're like, I don't even know what this is anymore, and this isn't good for me, and I need to pull away. It's very interesting because when I teach introduction to witchcraft classes, or I teach a class on runes, or I teach a class on bone casting or anything like that, I always ask everybody at the start of class, well, why are you here? And so many people have had a negative experience with a larger organized religion, but it wasn't necessarily the groundwork or the original teachings that they objected to. It was the way that the powerful wanted to stay in power by giving them a place and putting them down. And so I'm always trying to encourage people, there is beauty in a lot of these things. What we then have to look at, and this is one of the things that Samael talked to me about right in the beginning, is at what point did the faith and the magic stop and the power grab begin? And to be able to sort who is trying to listen to the divine from who is simply in it for, I want to lead a really big church and have everybody say that I'm in charge. It was really interesting. I went to lunch last week with a friend of mine that I worked with for many years, who is a very devout Christian. And she has always been wonderful. She reads all of my novels when I publish them, and she's always so enthusiastic about them. And she recommends the whole Spiral Pathway series to friends and everything. And when I published the book of Samael, I thought, oh God, she's going to hate this. I automatically assumed that because Samael is a seraphim, but he's also known as, you know, the king of demons and the consort of Lilith. And I thought, she's going to read this and she's never going to speak to me again. She's just going to look at the title. And I had this preconceived notion. But of course, she is on top of everything that I publish. So we sat down to lunch, and the very first thing she said to me was, "What's this book of Samael thing?" And I thought, oh no, this may be the last lunch we ever have. And I started, because I'm still insecure a lot of times in talking about how it happened. I fumbled my way through an explanation and I said, "Have you read it yet?" Thinking, and she said, "No, but I'm really curious about it from the description." And so I started describing it to her, and it quickly became apparent that this was probably going to be one of her favorite things I'd ever written. That she was like, "Yeah, that all makes sense to me." And she actually just emailed me last night and was like, "Would love to get together and continue that conversation deeper, because I feel like we have a really strong connection in our beliefs that we really didn't even know we had." And so, it just goes to show you, I automatically assumed, because she was Christian, that she wouldn't be interested in that aspect of what I wrote, when in fact, it's probably going to be the thing that helps us make the most connection.
And it's so interesting because so many of the topics that Samael is talking about are really things to help us heal our association with divine beings like Jesus and with the original teachings of Jesus. And when we first started having these conversations about it, we were both like, I'm not even sure if I can use the word Jesus. And I think you were like, so as I told you, we're going to call him, it was like, I don't remember, it was like Harold or something. So I'm just going to refer to him because there was there's, and I think so many of us have such a degree of religious trauma that the very word, it was like nails on a chalkboard. And we started realizing it was another baby with the bathwater thing. And so much, it's so funny because the fear of the idea of who is Samael and the misunderstandings that have been passed on and created and built throughout centuries about who he is and what he does and why. There's all this fear around it, and it's such a misunderstanding and a misinterpretation. And it's so interesting to me that while the idea of that brings up kind of a sense of fear of like, what are people within the Christian faith going to think about it because of other things that they may have heard, his primary messages have been helping us personally to start to deal with we have a joke that we should have a t-shirt that says, "Yeah, I'm working through some Jesus stuff." Because we kept talking to each other on these markers going, all right, I've got some Jesus stuff I got to work through, and realizing all these layers of stuff that we had put on based on these fears and things that people have said who have maybe misunderstood or misinterpreted the messages of Jesus that we were not connecting with. And we were throwing out a whole section of teaching and possible connection. And I've really been connecting with him as an ascended master. and this divine being. And that is so different than a lot of the teachings that are out there that use the teachings of love and compassion and universal acceptance as a way to divide people, and instead of bringing them together. And so I find it so ironic that Samael, the king of demons, and all these things that are said about him, actually, he has been really instrumental in saying, it's not him. The teachings are good. It's what we have done with it because of our humanness. Interestingly, at the same time, this week, I'm working on recording the audios and the videos for Goddess Kali for this goddess course through chakra dance. And Kali is another one of those divine beings who is this powerful, loving force for good and healing and transformation. But if you Google a picture of Kali, it's like, holy moly, she has, like a necklace of skulls, and she's holding this big scythe and a head and all this stuff. But it's a misunderstanding of what it is. She's the Hindu goddess of death and destruction, but it's the death of our false selves, of the egoic parts of us that keep us from truly living who we are, and the destruction of the walls we have built around ourselves based on the cultural conditioning and trauma and things like that we've built up. She's destroying that so that we can discover our true selves and bring that forward. But the first time I heard Goddess Kali and I heard the goddess of death and destruction, I was like, oh, heck no. Yeah, I'm going the other direction. Like, this is not the goddess I'm looking for. And, this is exactly what we need. It's just a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of what is really meant by the goddess of death and destruction. Sounds like a terrible, violent, scary, awful thing, but it's really exactly what we need. It's just, what kind of death? A death of what? Yeah. What kind of destruction? A destruction of what? And when we see that, it's like, oh my goodness, yeah, bring that on. That's what we all need.
Yeah, it was the same thing with Samael. I mean, one of the first things with him is I was like, okay, you're supposed to be a seraphim, but he was also supposed to be the angel of death, and then the other side is, I'm looking at king of demons. And I remember saying to him, are you an angel or are you a demon? And he basically said, it depends who's telling the story, and he talks about, I straddle worlds. And, he is an extremely famous figure, but depending on the lens that you're looking at him through, you're getting a different tale. And I really think that's actually, we all straddle worlds. I mean, if you think about it, we have who we are at home, which is different than who we are at work, which is different than who we are with children, which is different than who we are with our lovers. It's all, we have so many little worlds swirling around us. And a lot of times, faith tells us we're supposed to be one pure thing. And none of us are one pure thing. Being human is messy and tangled and a glorious mixture and a blend. We're all mutts. And so one of the things that I've been really excited about over this past year is to sort of explore the concept of straddling worlds, and that, your pantheon doesn't have to have one entity in it. I know, Jen, you work with so many different entities that I'm like, you bring up goddesses that I'm like, okay, real quick, Google, who is that? Because I feel like sometimes I live in my, my little Wiccan bubble where I got really, really comfortable for a long time. And so I learned so much from you all the time, just being like, whoa, you're doing Kali this week, and now you're dancing Aphrodite next week and chakra dance. And at some time point, we'll just have to have a whole episode about chakra dance, because I find it totally fascinating and amazing. And all of the conversations we've been having about incorporating music and dance into faith, it's been with humans since the beginning of the world. If you look at tribal groups, they celebrate and they raise energy and power through song and dance. And, that's something that I think as we get older, our knees start to creak and our hips start to give out, and we start to get too busy with running to the grocery store and picking up things for the PTA meeting or whatever. And we forget that we've got to find time to dance and whoop and holler. And it doesn't matter if you have a terrible voice. I mean, one of the things Jen has this amazing freaking voice. I mean, she's been in a band, and every time she opens her mouth, I'm just like, like I can hear the divine coming through. And then, I sing like an off-key 7-year-old, but I still love to do it. And have been loving to do it more as you've been encouraging me to do it, where, now the tavern that I'm working in that's full of spirits, I've been walking in and singing to them every time I go and encouraging other people to do the same. And people are starting to bring music into the house. And it's really even altering the vibration around a lot of the ghosts that are in this place. So we just need to start a list of all the wonderful things. So I'm clapping into the microphone, which probably didn't help. At least you guys can't hear the
Well,
corgi snoring. The corgi is snoring so loudly to my right. And I'm just like, oh my God, please don't let people think that's me. Making this.
I
So
can't
if you're
hear it at
listening,
all. I think it's
okay,
getting
good.
filtered.
She is like spilling out of her dog bed, head up against the wall, snoring like a big old piggy over there.
We must be
And
putting out some good energy.
oh man, there's both of my dogs are sound asleep right now. Yeah, I think it's been very soothing. Um, but yeah, we'll have to make a list of all these things we want to get into, an introduction to people who don't know Reiki, of, your Reiki journey and how they can get involved. And if people are interested in Wicca and what's the difference between witchcraft and Wicca and paganism, how they can start to find their way. And it's Samael has already been a big part of this conversation today. So I'm sure he'll pop in. Then we need to do chakra dance and we need to do sound healing. I hope people have long commutes so that we can keep them occupied.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my mind as we're going, I'm like, oh my goodness, we need to cover this and this. Yeah, and sound healing. There's so many things. So I think we are definitely both so excited to just continue
Yes.
sharing things and really excited about the community that will grow around and with this. The idea of people being able to come together and have somewhere to come and feel like, yeah, they would totally get me. I've had so
Yeah.
many people in Reiki classes or Reiki sessions say, I want to just share, like, this happened to me. And they're really worried that they're the only person who has
Yeah.
experienced this and are so relieved to hear that. I'm like, oh no, in my world, that is totally normal. Like, absolutely no, of course, of course, a voice spoke to you in meditation. Of course, you were in the supermarket and there was this, you need to go over and speak to this stranger that you've never met. And then incredible things happen. I think having just a sense of there's somewhere that I belong. There are other people that get this. And we're really excited about that idea of this community growing in this held beautiful space, expanding and expanding to hold more and more people in this feeling of just a tribal, loving, accepting place that you can be. And yeah, so many different types of things for
Yeah.
us to talk about.
Yeah, our ancestors were all part of tribes once, says the archaeologist. We all, I think a lot of times, and this is a whole nother topic that I'd love to get into some point, is this feeling a lot of times of being displaced from your tribe that a lot of times I think, especially in America, we have when we don't have a lot of outdoor ritualistic spaces to go visit that people in a lot of other countries do have, and that a lot of us have lost chunks of our heritage as we became Americanized, as our families struggled to fit in a new world. And so a lot of times we don't necessarily have that feeling of, I belong to this community, I belong to this tribe, I belong to this tradition, and they belong to me. Jen and I both have websites. So if you liked the podcast and you wanted to contact us through our websites, you could. Mine is tavabaird.com, TAVABAIRD.com. And you can join up or leave a message. I've got little newsletters that go on there that tell you things that are going on.
And
And
you also have Facebook as well, right?
yes, I'm Tava Baird on Facebook, or you could go under Dark Flower Books and Folk Art. I'm also Tava Baird on Instagram.
Yeah. And I have a website called willowridgereiki.com. So Willow, Willow, Ridge, Ridge, Reiki is REIKI.com. And my whole business name is Willow Ridge Reiki and Healing Arts. And I also have a Facebook that is Willow Ridge Reiki. And yeah, would love if you would like to reach out and connect for any reason. And I believe, at least if this is on YouTube, we'll be able to have show notes that where we can have connections with links as well. So as we figure out all those technical parts, you'll also be able to look in the show notes and be able to have different ways of connecting with us as well.
Yeah, and Jen teaches Reiki and animal Reiki, and chakra dance is about to come, and remote. So you don't have to be local to us. I do a lot of classes locally, but also do occasionally offer, bone casting and stuff on Zoom. And then I have a book called The Witch of Wolfcroft. So if I get contacted all the time by people who are looking for mentoring in witchcraft, but unfortunately my dance card is full. So I put out a book of the first 20 odd lessons that I teach for people. So if you want to dip your toe into Wicca or witchcraft, that's a great place to get started. And it's available on Amazon.com or through my Etsy shop, which is Dark Flower Books and Folk Art.
Yes,
And
and that is really good, by the way.
oh, thank you
All of the books are
very
amazing.
much.
I have to say, like, I am not a big reader, other than I love reading about anything spiritual, but I've not been a fiction reader pretty much my entire life. And I cannot put your books down. From
Oh,
page one, I cannot put them down. And my family is in complete shock because they have never seen me sit and be like, I have to finish this. I have to finish this chapter before I get up.
I like this podcast. You're stroking my ego. This
Good. It needs some, because you are one of the most humble people I know. And yeah, I'm so excited for people to have these. Oh, and in line with the idea of resources, as we were talking, one of the things that came to me was that I wanted to be sure that you know that on my website, there's a tab called recordings, and under there I have just free recordings that help to just shift your energy. They are filled with Reiki and sound healing, and who knows how many different layers of divine working through me in my voice. And my husband as well is in I think almost all of the recordings. He's also a Reiki master and sound healer. And there's one in particular called Peace and Release that I really want to make sure everyone knows about.
amazing.
It has, and not to really get too deep into it, but essentially it has an energy, kind of like an energy program. It's like getting a Reiki session that cleanses and clears your energy and helps to release unhealed energies that are in your vicinity or attached to you in any way. And sometimes it can just feel like you're just super irritated and you can't seem to let go of it, or you just feel like you're not yourself. Listen to that recording, play that recording. It is amazing. My whole family, we use that on a regular basis of, I think I just need to play this, or you're leaving the supermarket and you're going, oh, I feel like all of the weight of the people around me or wherever I was, it's like picking up all these energetic dust bunnies through the day. And you feel that. And anytime you become aware of that, play that recording. You don't even have to have the sound up. So if you're at work or you're in the car or something and there are people and you're thinking, I can't have anybody listen to this, you can have the volume turned down and the energy will still come through. So I just want to make that aware, because I have people all over the world writing me going, oh my gosh, thank you. Oh my goodness, it is so helpful. And like I said, and you may not like our voices or the sounds of anything, but you don't even have to listen to it to receive the healing and the clearing. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about that.
I would definitely. It was so funny because I was thinking, oh, I'm going to tell them about her recordings. And then you said it once again, we are in synergy. Those recordings are so, so helpful. I recommend them to all the people that I mentor. In the book, it tells you how to access the link through my website. I was just using it the other day, and it's really, really incredible to just have that. It's like kind of going into a nice pool. I love that you said energetic dust bunnies. That's now I want a shirt that says that, energetic dust bunnies, that it just everything floats away. I was having an energetically just horrid day a couple days ago. I had done some shifting and basically, just for lack of a better terms, the rust was starting to come off of me as I was letting out all of these emotions from, I think, childhood. And that recording helped me so much to reset myself and get back into place where I could move forward. So definitely hit up that website, and you can play it through your phone or through your card. It's great. But there was something else I was going to say, but at 52, I forget it all the time.
52 is young. We're going to be living. So we're going to be doing these podcasts for so many years. They'll be like, oh my gosh, she was calling herself old. Then they're in their upper 90s.
Maybe I'll become instantly young again at 75 and just loop around. Um,
Absolutely.
but it always amazes me how easy it is to talk to you. The idea of doing something like this on my own is just, and then I can sit on here and literally just talk about this with you for hours. So I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. And we do have plans to maybe start putting some of those energetic experiences of Jen singing or some sound healing or some guided meditations at the end of future podcasts. So we're looking at doing that. So you could listen to us talk for a little while and then have a lovely experience at the end.
And actually, I feel like I am supposed to and bring this together with bringing through song. I think it will probably be. I
Yes,
never know
please,
exactly
please,
what's going to
please.
come through when I open my mouth. So we'll
Sing
see.
us out, Jen.
But I definitely feel like I'm supposed to do that. So yeah, this is
Close
kind
the
of how our
ritual,
lives
baby.
are too. We're like, oh no, I'm going to do this now.
Yep.
All right, so
So
I'm going to switch the audio real quickly. Is there anything else you want to tell anybody, or anything that Samael would like to say to anyone?
I'm so excited to do this again, and I really do want to encourage people to reach out. We do want to hear from you. We're on the same path as you. And I just want to thank you, Jen, for doing this with me today, and thank everybody for listening. And next time the seraphim, but I know he's listening right now, but the next time he has something to say, I'm sure he will. I'll write it down and share it. I have a feeling he's still figuring out what a podcast is.
This is a relatively new invention. I'm still figuring out exactly how a podcast is. So
He calls the television and the computer the poison box. So I have to communication there in the beginning. I don't think he deals a lot with electronics, but
I can see that.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of lead us back into that quiet space. And again, if you're driving, you may want to just pause this until you can get to a space where you can really surrender to it, because sometimes these things that come through, they take us deep fast. So just make sure that you're in a place where you can safely do this. You can always replay it later. So I invite you to take 3 slow, deep breaths. And if you would like to receive Reiki, you can simply just intend to. If for any reason it makes you uncomfortable, or you don't feel like you would like to do that, it completely is in respect and total respect of your free will. So if it's something that you're just interested in, you'd like to listen to this, but you don't want to actually receive any of the energy, you can just say, nope, not for me, and it will all be respected. But so we're sending love and light and healing and Reiki for your highest good and the highest good of all creation. And I invite you to just become aware of your grounding. Become aware of the earth, wherever the earth is in relation to you. Whether you're on a plane or in a high rise or sitting on the earth, you can still connect to this energy. So I invite you to just imagine the bottoms of your feet opening and roots stretching down to the earth. And it may be down through, 10 different stories of a building, but it still goes down into the good earth, spreading deep and wide, like the roots of a great tree. And as your roots reach out deep and wide into the earth, feel branches reaching up through the tops of your head and shoulders, up, reaching up and out, and blossoming with many different either flowers or leaves, soaking up the divine light from above, becoming a great sacred tree. And bring your awareness then into the center of your heart space, which is right kind of in the center of your sternum there, kind of aligned with your heart, but over right in the middle of your chest. I invite you to just breathe into that space right now, grounded on earth, receiving light, and centered in your heart. May you be held and blessed and divinely led. May you call light. May you know light. May you know yourself as the light and shine it for all creation. Amen, and so it is.
And I have a little message for you.
I am very open to that.
Samael says to tell you, it is a good song, Shala. It is a good song.
I am so grateful and so grateful to hear that. Thank you.
We have an extra audience member. He definitely loves to hear you sing.
Well, I am so grateful to be in service with my voice. So until next time.
Until next time, may you all have lovely days and lovely nights, and not forget to look up at the sky and know that your ancestors are watching, and not forget to look up at the moon and know that we are all part of the same circle.